Hi, and thanks for stopping by. I'm just going to make a quick video here about some things that have been on my mind, and one of them is why I keep making videos. You know, what is it that motivates me to share my thoughts and feelings with you, my viewing audience. And I feel a compulsion that something that I have to say is worthy of your views and that people will benefit. Even if it's one or two people, there is information that they want to hear and will motivate them and comfort them. And the other thing is, I've made a new emoji, which I'm really excited about because it's so much fun to put them together. And this is the emoji that came out when I started putting in all the little features. So I wanted to see just how close to the emoji that I look. So anyway, that's the red. So one of the things that's come to my attention over and over again lately, and that's what makes me want to talk about it, and that is the concept of remote viewing. And for those who don't know what that is, I will explain that later. And the question that I have is, what's the relationship between remote viewing and visions? And, you know, my old channel was called Natasha's Journey of Visions and Prophecy. And some of my background is in that field. Some people call it ESP, communicating with another interdimensional level. So I'm going to talk here about remote viewing and how that might explain some of the things that I've experienced in the last few years. So I'm going to just put some slides up and give you a little bit more information. Let's talk first about remote viewing. And for those that have not heard that term before, let me explain how it came about. Back in about the middle of the 1970s, Stanford University developed a program using people who had some degree of extrasensory perception to begin with, and they trained a group of people to prepare them for, I'm not sure the initial purpose was for military surveillance, but that's what it ended up being. But they trained people to go into a meditative state, and then they would give them instructions in a sealed envelope, so it was totally blind, and in the envelope would be a picture or a description or an event or a prediction of something to come, a date, a place, something like that. And then they would give it to a group of people, and then the people were trained in how to meditate and go into almost another state of being, from consciousness to subconsciousness and theta states of being, of mental being. And then they would just have those subjects write down the information that came to them about what they thought was in the envelope. And then they would compare what they had to say, each one of those subjects, with what was in their envelope. And they found that there was a significant correlation between what the subjects saw and wrote down in their reports as to what was in the envelopes that they were given. And how I explain that is kind of a dream state. And you know how sometimes when you dream you seem to be in other places and you see other things from different perspectives. Well, that's kind of like what the people are doing in this remote viewing testing situation. And the the training, they say that they can teach anybody to be a remote viewer, but I really believe that the better remote viewers are those that have some innate ability to detach themselves from their consciousness to go into this other state. Now, with that as background, there are some pretty famous people, well-known people, published people who have participated in remote viewing. One of the early people, I think trained at Stanford, was Ingo Swann, Lynn Buchanan, and one that you might recognize the name better is Ed Dames. Now, Ed Dames left the program, went out on his own because he did not want to be involved in military uses of these talented people to surveil and find bunkers and find terrorists and things like that, which they did, and they had success. And by the way, if any of you saw the movie, I think it was called They Talk to Goats. I'm sorry, I can't remember, with George Clooney. Well, anyway, that's about remote viewing. It's a comedy, but anyway, watch it if you want to learn a little bit more about the programs and remote viewing itself. But Ed Dames broke away from the original group and started teaching remote viewing. And he taught until about, I think it was about 3 years ago, and he stopped touring. But one of the big remote viewing revelations that he came up with was an event that's going to happen on our sun, and he called it the kill shot. And he describes it as, I think what he's describing sounds to me like either a very large solar flare, like triple X, or possibly a solar nova, which is kind of a mini explosion, a micro explosion on the moon that comes to Earth and does a lot of damage on Earth, on the Earth-facing side, or the sun-facing side of the Earth. And some of the things that he saw that would happen with this kind of an event, and it is an extinction level event, but it would cause power outages, extreme radiation, in fact, power grid collapse, fires, the Earth would be scorched, radiation levels would increase and cause physical harm to people who are experiencing it. And a lot of people have taken this seriously, and a lot of these survival groups that believe going underground is a way to escape this coming apocalyptic event that Ed Dames calls the kill shot. Other people have other names for it, but it's happened before on our Earth. There's evidence on the moon, the crystallization of rocks on the moon, and also here on Earth. There's evidence, geological evidence, that an event like this has happened in the past. So with remote viewing, this kind of dream state that you go into, I believe it's an out-of-body experience that people who have near-death experiences sometimes describe this kind of event. Now, I became interested in it because years ago, I was in a meditative trance state. I'm easily hypnotized, and this kind of felt like an hypnosis in that I wasn't totally asleep when it was happening, and I heard the words and saw the scenes, but I was able afterwards to recall what I had experienced and write it all down. And I've made a couple of videos about that initial experience, but let me just briefly review it here. I went somewhere in time and space, and what I saw was, and the words that I heard to describe it were, an amphitheater concave in shape, built into the sides of a hill, and then the term hands of time and pyramids. And I wrote it all down, and I drew a diagram, pretty easy to draw that in a diagram form. And then I didn't know what it meant, so I kind of just forgot about it. And a couple of weeks after that, I went to a retreat, a weekend retreat in California in the San Bernardino Mountains east of LA. And the first night that we got there, there were, at that point, more were coming the next day, but I think there were 5 of us. And the hostess decided somewhere after dark, before midnight as I recall, to take us on just a little tour of the grounds. So we went, and it's all forested up on that very high peak in the mountains, way up on top really. But it's forested, so we went, kind of walked through a path in the forest, and we came upon kind of an archway that went into a structure. And as I walked through that archway and saw the structure, I was just amazed. It was an amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater, built into the sides of a hill, concave in shape, and it had 12 pillars around the perimeter of the seating, and on top of each pillar was a pyramid. So the 12 pillars were the hands of time, 12, and the pyramid on top. And the structure itself was called Pillars of God. Now I was, you can imagine, just baffled, like, oh my goodness, something really happened to me. To this day I can't explain it. When I heard about remote viewing, I thought, but it was not intentional, and mostly remote viewing is under, conditions of, blind instructions, and there's very regimented methods of going through the process. But for me, it just happened. I didn't know why, and even today I don't know why, other than for me to recognize myself that I had some ability to go into the future and see things that haven't happened yet, which kind of corresponded with some of the other events in my life that I predicted, that I knew was happening. When my mother-in-law passed away, I was on my way to the drugstore. She had been in the hospital, had surgery, and I was on my way to the drugstore to buy a get well card to send to her. And I had this crushing sensation in my chest. It just took my breath away. And I knew that she had passed away at that moment. And when I got home from the drugstore, there was a message from my father-in-law saying that she had passed away. So that was some other interdimensional state of being that I would be that I experienced in her death. So the relationship between that and having other abilities like clairvoyance, clairaudience, there's a process that I've learned how to do, and it's called, it's part of a channeling kind of thing where you can channel past relatives, ancestors that have passed away, or people that have passed away. You can channel their energy. And then there's this concept that's called automatic writing, and that is you clear your mind, your ego, and ask only that which is positive to come into your area, your energy field, and then write down. Just start writing down whatever comes to your mind, and usually it comes really fast, and you write just the words down that comes, and they almost don't come through your brain. They just go straight to your pen. Just write it all down, and then afterwards you can read it and see what it said. And sometimes they're very messages that are endearing. Mine have always been positive. And another aspect of this whole realm of another dimension is the power of positive thinking. And that's been around for decades. I think it's Norman Vincent Peale. I think he was the one who wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. But since then, there's been a concept of you can create your own reality through the law. They call it the law of attraction. And so if you have positive thoughts, then you draw to yourself positive energy. If you have negative thoughts, then you draw to yourself negative thoughts. So it's sort of like the person who always thinks that, there's a black cloud over them and everything bad happens. Everything bad will keep happening. And so that mindset of the power of being positive is what that's all about. But it's also includes this other realm of existence than just seeing what's going on around you. It's a deeper sensation, a deeper feeling. Well, I think that's all I'm going to say in this video, but maybe I'll follow up with another video more about my own personal experiences, both with remote viewing, automatic writing, channeling. And I want to add, I'm an educated computer science programmer. I'm an analytic person, a problem solver. So for this other realm of existence to come into, to empower me, it is quite strange. And for years, I didn't believe that it was happening to me. I couldn't understand it, I couldn't explain it. But I thought, no, I'm too rational. This can't be real. So I'll tell you how it became real in my life. And thank you so much for dropping in and being interested in the topics that I have to share. And may your God bless you and keep you safe. I love you all. I am Natasha.